you ever considered that this season of tension you're walking through isn't confusion at all, but confirmation? What if the very space you've been calling the middle is not a place of delay, but a divine position? I believe with all my heart that you are not lost in transition. You are planted on purpose, right where God intended. You see, heaven never places people randomly. You weren't born by accident or launched into this moment by coincidence. You were sent by God himself as part of a greater assignment. Jeremiah 1 verse 5 reminds us that before we were formed in the womb, God knew us and set us apart. That means before you took your first breath, heaven had already written your role in this story. You were never meant to fully fit into the past or feel entirely comfortable in the future, because you're not just passing through time. You're the bridge between what was and what's coming next. And let me speak plainly. This is exactly why the battle has been so fierce over your life. The warfare started early, because the enemy saw the ripple effect of your obedience before you even understood it yourself. Some of us grew up wondering why we faced rejection, misunderstanding, or spiritual attacks that others around us never seemed to experience. But I need you to hear this. That wasn't because you were weak or flawed. It was because your very existence is a threat to generational strongholds. You carry a weight that many around you can't see, but heaven has always known it. Romans 8 verse 30 declares that those God predestined he also called, and those he called he justified, and those he justified he glorified. You were chosen not just to survive your family's cycles, but to break them. To be misunderstood is not a curse. It is often confirmation that you are walking in uncommon purpose. This is why some doors didn't open, why some relationships couldn't last, and why certain spaces began to feel uncomfortable. It's not because you were rejected, it's because you were redirected. Isaiah 43 verse 19 reminds us that God is doing a new thing, making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Friend, you are that new thing. You are the passage through which heaven is writing a fresh story. I need you to embrace this truth. Your life is not a random series of events. It is a divine threshold. You were not called to repeat what was. You were chosen to rebuild what will be. They called it confusion, but God calls it construction. Thus, I warmly invite you to stay with me until the end, where we will step into a heartfelt moment of prayer together. Beloved, it's amazing how God has a way of flipping the script on everything we thought was broken beyond repair. Let's go deeper, because where we're headed next may explain why you've been feeling such deep tension in your soul. What if the very dysfunction you were born into wasn't a punishment, but your platform? What if it wasn't your curse, but your calling? I've learned this truth firsthand. Heaven doesn't randomly assign families, communities, or circumstances. No, you were born right where you were for a divine reason. You may have cried out asking God why you had to endure such chaos, why your home wasn't like others, why peace felt so foreign. But here's the truth. God didn't place you in comfort. He placed you in need because you were called to be the answer. You weren't born into your family by accident. You were sent there by assignment. God placed you where healing was absent, not to leave you wounded, but to ignite restoration. That gnawing feeling inside you, the one that always questioned why things had to be this way, that wasn't rebellion. That was your first sign of calling. You questioned what others accepted because your spirit already knew that the cycle had to end with you. Maybe you've spent years carrying silent burdens, holding in questions no one around you dared to voice. You've carried answers that others didn't even know how to ask for. Friend, that's not an accident. That's God entrusting you with spiritual vision beyond your environment. You weren't born to fit dysfunction. You were born to confront it. You weren't called to adapt to chaos. You were called to dismantle it. That's why the pain felt so personal. It was your training ground. Your early wounds weren't wasted. They sharpened your spiritual discernment. They taught you how to recognize what others couldn't even name. I know you felt like the outsider, the black sheep, the misunderstood one in your circle. But I need you to hear this in your spirit today. You're not the echo. You're the end of the echo. You are the one God has anointed to say, it stops here. Every generational curse, every cycle of dysfunction, every toxic pattern that's been repeated for decades, heaven has chosen you to be the breaker. That tension you've felt all your life, the restlessness in your spirit, the sense that you were born for more, it's been the signal all along. You are the transition. You are the threshold between what was and what's to come. Your life has been marked not by mere survival, but by divine transformation. Let's not overlook the spiritual dimension of this. The warfare you've faced wasn't random either. It wasn't just bad luck or unfortunate timing. The enemy always targets what carries power. The battles you've endured are proof of your significance in the spiritual realm. Hell doesn't fight what doesn't threaten it. I find such comfort in the story of Joseph. In Genesis 50 verse 20, Joseph looked his brothers in the eyes, those who betrayed him, who sold him, who tried to erase his future, and he declared, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good to bring it about, that many people should be kept alive." That's not just a story of survival. That's the testimony of a breaker, someone who turned betrayal into blessing. And let's not forget Jesus' words in John 15 verse 16. "You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last." Your appointment isn't temporary, it's eternal. You were chosen before you even knew it. Even in the groaning of your spirit when the weight feels unbearable, remember what Romans 8 verse 18 says. "I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us." Friend, the glory coming through you is far greater than the pain behind you. You weren't just born, you were deployed. Heaven is watching what you build from what once broke you. And I believe with all my heart, you're about to build something that will bless generations you'll never even meet. There's a moment in every believer's journey when you start feeling like a stranger in the very places where you once felt secure. The shift isn't sudden, but it's undeniable. You wake up one day and realize the familiar no longer fits. The conversations that used to excite you now sound empty. The circles that once celebrated you now seem confining. And what once felt like home suddenly feels like a holding cell. But this isn't confusion, it's confirmation. This is the sound of purpose waking up within you. It's the unmistakable sign that God is pulling you away from expired seasons. And I know how unsettling that can be. You start to wonder, why do I feel so disconnected? Why does everything I once loved now feel so limiting? But here's the truth I've come to embrace. Your comfort zone eventually becomes your stretching zone. It's not because you've changed for the worse, but because you've outgrown where you once were. God has a way of making familiar places uncomfortable when it's time to grow beyond them. It's not punishment, it's preparation. You're not losing your footing, you're gaining your wings. That disconnection you feel isn't the enemy attacking you. It's God disconnecting you from what no longer carries your growth. He's breaking ties with what you've outgrown. For so long you may have believed that the version of yourself who fit in was the real you. But in truth, that version was shaped by survival, by trauma, by trying to be accepted in rooms you were never meant to stay in. You weren't born to blend in with dysfunction, you were born to rise from it. You're not rebellious for outgrowing old patterns. You've been reborn for something new. I've walked this road myself, and I can tell you old conversations start to feel like chains. Relationships that were once your refuge begin to feel like a trap. Familiar rooms grow smaller not because they changed, but because you did. When God breathes purpose into you, He also gives you a fresh awareness, a clarity that silences the noise around you. You find yourself speaking less in rooms you once dominated, not because you've lost your voice, but because your spirit recognizes the difference between peace and pacification. It's easy to feel guilty in this season, to feel as though you're abandoning people you once loved deeply. But friend, obedience to God isn't abandonment, it's alignment. God didn't call you to shrink yourself to stay connected to people who are no longer moving in your direction. Sometimes the greatest act of love you can show is to let go and walk forward. Purpose will always pull you away from past attachments. It creates tension, yes, but it also brings freedom. And hear this clearly, you're not being dramatic, you're being delivered. Delivered from cycles that no longer serve you. Delivered from patterns that kept you bound. Delivered from the false guilt of thinking you owe your destiny to people who refuse to grow. You were designed for more. That's why you're experiencing this stretching, this tearing away from what was. God Himself said in His Word that anyone who belongs to Christ is a new creation. The old has passed away and the new has come. You're stepping into that newness right now. He also speaks through the prophet Isaiah, reminding us to forget the former things and not dwell on the past. For He is doing a new thing, making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. And Paul echoes this when he urges us to forget what lies behind and press forward toward what is ahead. This isn't the end of something. It's the birth of something divine. You've outgrown what used to hold you. And that isn't arrogance, it's evidence. It's proof that the future isn't waiting in the distance, it's already calling your name. And that, my friend, is why you can walk away from yesterday with peace in your heart. You are not returning to what was. You are being released into what is yet to come. Life has a way of leading us into unexpected quiet places. Just when we believe we've fully let go of the past, we discover that the next chapter doesn't always come wrapped in bright lights or loud celebrations. Sometimes it enters softly wrapped in stillness. And in that quiet, it's easy to start questioning everything again. But here's what the Lord presses upon my heart. And perhaps He's speaking it to you as well. It's not simply stillness, it's sacredness. You see, the world teaches us that standing still means being stuck. But in the kingdom of God, stillness is often a strategy. You're not stuck, you're stationed. You're not standing still, you're standing sacred. This season you're walking through isn't a delay, it's a divine development. God isn't putting you on pause, He's pulling you deeper into preparation. Friend, holding space is no passive act. It's spiritual warfare in disguise. It's easy to move fast, to chase progress, to strive for visible fruit. But it takes a deep, abiding trust in God to stand firm in the hallway, waiting for doors that have yet to swing open. And that hallway, it's not empty, it's holy ground. You are interceding for doors not just for yourself, but for others who will come after you. Your prayers in this space are weaving a safety net for the souls who will one day walk where you now stand. That burden you feel pressing upon your chest, that unseen weight pulling at your heart, it's not random. It's the unmistakable mark of generational calling. You're not simply carrying your own hopes, you're carrying the legacy of those you may never meet. This space, as uncomfortable as it may feel, is pregnant with purpose. What you're building right now isn't just for today. It's a shelter that will one day protect others from storms they haven't yet seen. You are midwifing the future. Yes, the waiting feels long. Yes, the nights may stretch endlessly. But your obedience is constructing a foundation stronger than anything this world could offer. I know there are moments when it feels as if heaven has gone silent. The prayers seem unanswered, the visions seem distant. But listen closely. Silence is not absence. Silence is alignment. In the quiet, God is stitching together the pieces of your assignment. In the pause, heaven is positioning everything perfectly. Isaiah 40 verse 31 reminds us that those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. This isn't the weariness of doing nothing. This is the endurance of doing what's unseen. It's standing, sowing, and believing even when no one else sees the seeds in your hands. Habakkuk 2 verse 3 speaks right into this moment. It says that the vision is for an appointed time. Though it lingers, wait for it. It will surely come, it will not delay. Heaven isn't slow, it's strategic. There are layers of divine timing unfolding in your life right now, and what feels like a standstill is actually sacred movement beneath the surface. Even King David knew this holy tension. Psalm 27 verse 14 calls us to wait for the Lord, to be strong and take heart, and to wait again. Notice how he repeats it. Waiting is not weakness, it's warfare dressed in worship. And I want you to realize something powerful. Others will one day walk in the ease that you are birthing through your tears. They won't see the hours you spent on your knees, the nights you wrestled with God in prayer, the invisible battles you fought in silence. But they will walk freely in places where you once bled to build. This is why you cannot despise this season. You're not standing in between, you're standing on divine assignment. You're holding space for what's coming next, and heaven is watching. The weight you carry isn't crushing you, it's shaping you into a vessel of legacy. You're not alone here. You're simply standing where heaven asked you to stand, becoming the bridge for blessings that will stretch far beyond your own lifetime. Some seasons don't just ask you to stand still, they ask you to be stood upon. And maybe that's exactly where you are right now. You've been holding the weight, holding your ground, holding your faith, not because it's easy, but because heaven positioned you there. While others crossed freely, you stayed behind, steadying the structure beneath them. You didn't complain, you didn't collapse. You simply kept holding space, quietly becoming the bridge they didn't even know they were walking on. There's a certain kind of person God calls to this role, and I know it's not for the faint of heart. You've been the stable place for others' instability. You've been the strong shoulder they leaned on while they cried, while they wondered, while they questioned. And yes, they came and went. They took what they needed and then moved on, often without even glancing back. But let me speak this truth right into the depths of your spirit. God never moved on. Heaven never overlooked you. Every tear you cried in private has been carefully gathered by the hands of the Father. Nothing has been wasted. Every unseen act of kindness, every unseen sacrifice, every quiet yes has been meticulously recorded by the one who sees all. Sometimes we confuse being hidden with being forgotten. But the truth is, God often hides the strongest among us, not because we are unworthy of being seen, but because we are too precious to be exposed too soon. You weren't weak for standing firm when others wavered. You were holy for showing up. You weren't foolish for staying faithful. You were foundational for doing so. I'm here to remind you that you're not forgotten. You're forged. You are not just a person. They may see you as ordinary, but in heaven's eyes you are a foundational force. The ones who carry others through aren't always celebrated, but they are always strengthened by heaven. Your strength doesn't come from applause, it flows from anointing. You're not validated by visibility, you're validated by your assignment. Psalm 18 verse 2 declares, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock in whom I take refuge." And I believe this verse isn't just a reminder of God's nature. It's a reflection of what He's forming inside you. You have become a rock for others, a steady place where people found refuge when everything else was shaking around them. And here's the beauty of it. You didn't even realize it most of the time. You just kept showing up. Galatians 6 verse 9 encourages us not to grow weary in well-doing, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. That's not a cliche, that's a lifeline. Because heaven's timing is perfect, and though others may have forgotten how much you've carried, God is counting every step. You made a way when no one else could. You stood in gaps others didn't even know existed. And here's what you need to hear today. What you built in secret will be honored in public. Matthew 25 verse 23 holds a promise that rings loudly in this very moment. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Those words weren't just written for someone in a parable 2,000 years ago. They are echoing over your life right now. People may have used you to cross over, but God has always been using you to carry glory. You were never called to be merely walked on. You were called to carry the weight of heaven's purposes and remain unbroken. You're not just a bridge, you are an unshakable pathway to promise. So if you've been wondering whether your silent labor, your unseen loyalty, or your steadfast heart has been overlooked, hear me clearly today. Heaven has been watching, and heaven is not unjust to forget. Your turn is coming, and when it does, it won't simply be a reward, it will be an elevation. Because bridges may not get praised, but they surely get lifted in due time. When others walk away from seasons that broke them, you remain because you understand something deeper. You don't just survive storms, you translate them. You carry the language of both the storm and the stillness. And that, my friend, is your secret weapon. Some people only know one side. They've either walked in sunshine and can't comprehend the midnight cries of the broken, or they've lived in darkness so long they can't even imagine dawn. But you have walked through both. You've known the ache of survival, but you've also tasted the sweetness of revelation. You've been in the pit, but you've also stood on mountaintops. And because of that, your words aren't shallow. Your prayers aren't empty. Your counsel isn't theory, it's testimony. Romans 5 verse 3-5 tells us plainly that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character, and character gives birth to hope, and hope does not disappoint. That isn't just a verse to you, it's your biography. You've seen despair, but even in the darkest nights, you held on to destiny. You dared to dream while your heart was breaking. You spoke life when everything around you whispered death. And it's precisely because of your journey through the shadows that you now speak with authority in the light. You're not merely passing through seasons, you're harvesting language from them. Your voice carries healing because your wounds taught you truth. You don't minister from theory, you minister from encounter. Every scar on your heart has been turned into a key in your hand. You don't just talk about freedom, you fought for it. You don't just preach breakthrough, you bled for it. Psalm 119 verse 71 says, "It was good for me to be afflicted so that I might learn your decrees." And this right here is the reality many don't see. The very affliction that nearly crushed you became your classroom. You were trained in shadows so that you could lead others into the light. While others avoided the fire, you walked through it, and that's why your wisdom holds weight. It wasn't learned from books, it was earned through battle. You aren't here to offer platitudes. You're here to deliver prophetic strategies because you've been there. You don't offer guesses, you operate by discernment. You recognize the cry of someone in bondage because you've heard your own voice echo through the same prison walls. You aren't intimidated by chaos because you've navigated it. You aren't shaken by resistance because you've endured it. And here's what's powerful, you now carry keys, not just quotes. You don't repeat what others have said, you release what heaven has revealed through your story. Hebrews 5 verse 8 says that even Jesus, the Son of God, learned obedience through what he suffered. If he walked that road, why should we be surprised when we are called to do the same? Obedience refined in suffering is the purest obedience there is. You've become a spiritual translator, someone who can stand between the worlds of pain and promise and lead others across. You speak the language of the broken because you were once broken too. You know how to pray for deliverance because you've wrestled for it yourself. You can speak peace into panic because you've found it in your own storms. This is the very reason your presence carries authority. It's not about being loud or flashy, it's about being seasoned. You don't need to convince people with your words because your very life carries weight. You walk into rooms with keys dangling in your spirit, unlocking what others thought would never be free. And this is where the beauty unfolds. You aren't just a witness to what God has done. You are a weapon forged in contradiction. You are the evidence that God brings beauty from ashes, hope from heartbreak, and destiny from disaster. You speak with clarity because your ears have been tuned through trial. You love deeply because you've been healed from deep wounds. You speak the language of both sides, and that is why you're dangerous to the enemy and indispensable to the kingdom. You aren't just surviving anymore, you're leading others out. You're not just speaking, you're translating heaven to earth. Some may wonder how a heart that has been through so much can still carry vision. But here's the truth. After learning the language of both storm and stillness, you don't just carry survival, you carry strategy. You see, survival wasn't your final destination, it was only the schooling ground. You weren't called to merely fix broken places temporarily. You were sent to design entirely new roads where none existed before. You weren't called to patch pain. You were built to pioneer paths. That realization hits differently when you understand that God didn't set you in the midst of chaos just to manage it. He placed you there to rewrite the entire design. Isaiah 58 verse 12 paints this picture with power, declaring, "You will rebuild the ancient ruins and raise up the age-old foundations. You will be called repairer of the breach, restorer of streets with dwellings." That is not the calling of someone who simply applies band-aids. That is the mantle of a builder, a reformer, a pioneer. You may look at your life and see fragments, broken seasons, tough roads, hard lessons, but I urge you to see it differently. Your story is not a scattered mess. It is a blueprint in the hands of God. He has been architecting every chapter, every scar, every hidden struggle, as part of a divine design meant to guide others out of their wilderness. What others call wounds, heaven calls maps. Every scar has become a line drawn in your spiritual blueprint, pointing the way toward freedom for those who are watching your life unfold. This is why you couldn't fit into the molds others tried to impose on you. You were not sent here to maintain what is familiar. You were sent to create what has never been seen before. Romans 12 verse 2 urges us not to conform to the patterns of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, so we can discern what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. That word transformed isn't just about personal change, it's about becoming a living, breathing design for others to follow. Your obedience in hidden seasons has been doing more than sustaining you. It has been forming foundations that others will stand on. Your calling is architectural. Every prayer you've prayed in secret, every step of faith you've taken, when no one applauded, every moment you refused to compromise, those were bricks being laid for generations to come. Hebrews 11 verse 1-2 reminds us that faith is the assurance of what we hope for, the conviction of things not seen. And it goes on to say that by faith, the ancients earned a good reputation. You are part of that same lineage. You are the modern-day builder constructing spiritual roads that others will one day walk upon with ease. Heaven never intended for you to merely soothe dysfunction. God didn't call you to patch up crumbling systems. He called you to birth new ones. That's why your boldness has felt risky. That's why your vision has seemed too big for some to understand. Because it's not meant to comfort the status quo. It's meant to call forth what's coming. You are not just here to survive dysfunction. You were sent to design freedom. Your very existence is a divine layout drafted by heaven's hand so that others might have a framework for their own breakthrough. Some will misunderstand your path. Others may call you too bold, too different, too much. But here's what I know deep in my spirit. Your boldness is not recklessness. It is the blueprint of others' deliverance. You're not building just for yourself. You're laying out highways of healing, bridges of hope, and strongholds of faith that others will inherit long after your name is forgotten by man, but never by heaven. There comes a moment when you realize that what's flowing through your life isn't just about your personal victories or your temporary seasons of pain. No, it's deeper. It's eternal. When you've spent years carrying burdens others never saw, there's a holy shift where God shows you this isn't just about you at all. It's about those who will never know your name, but will live in the freedom your obedience unlocked. Your obedience is echoing into places your feet may never walk. This is the sacred beauty of generational impact. Many of us grew up in households where chains were passed down like heirlooms, cycles of fear, poverty, addiction, rejection. But God in His mercy interrupts those cycles with a person willing to say yes. And I've come to realize that person is often the one who feels the least qualified, the most attacked, the most misunderstood. If you're listening right now, chances are you are that person. Heaven is showing you that your yes isn't just about the now, it's about the next. Your surrender becomes the foundation for the freedom of your children, your grandchildren, and even strangers whose faces you'll never see. Proverbs 13 verse 22 declares, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." And while the world may limit that to financial wealth, heaven speaks of spiritual inheritance, peace, purpose, and power passed down. Every time you chose to forgive when bitterness seemed easier, every time you stood in prayer when others walked away, every moment you carried the weight that others avoided, you were unlocking freedom that will bless people who never knew your name. You've been tearing down generational walls that held your family captive for decades, and heaven has recorded every moment of it. Some of the warfare you've faced wasn't random at all. It wasn't just life being unfair. It was targeted resistance because the enemy always fights hardest against the one carrying the key. You see, your pain wasn't wasted. It was inherited breakthrough. The crushing you endured wasn't in vain. It became the oil that will anoint others to step into liberty. You've been called to be both Moses and Joshua. You've been appointed as the one who breaks the chains of Egypt, but also the one who leads people into promise. Exodus 3 verse 7 to 10 gives us God's heart when He tells Moses that He has seen the oppression of His people and has come down to deliver them through Moses. That same mantle rests upon you. You are carrying the dual anointing to break what has bound others and to build what will bless them. I know it hasn't been easy. You've watched others live comfortably while you wrestled with unseen weights. But here is the truth. Heaven wants you to hear right now, your legacy is spiritual territory. You are literally reclaiming ground that was surrendered by previous generations. Isaiah 61 verse 4 proclaims, "They will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. They will renew the ruined cities that have been devastated for generations." That's not just prophecy, it's your present calling. What you are building with your life will outlive you. Your prayers will echo in places you never visit. Your obedience will shelter children not yet born. You were not born for a fleeting season. You were woven into a divine timeline. God knew the exact moment in history to place you. He saw your heart, your resolve, and your ability to stand when others would have crumbled. And that warfare you've endured, it wasn't a sign of failure. It was confirmation of what heaven hid inside you. The enemy doesn't fight what doesn't threaten him. If your life has been marked by intense battles, take heart, because it's proof that something holy, something generational, something eternal has been planted within you. You've been sowing seeds with tears, but generations will reap with joy. Your name will be tied to freedom and your story to altars that echo into eternity. Some moments in life arrive so quietly, yet they carry the weight of eternity. You may not even realize it, but right now, everything inside of you is stretching beyond what feels comfortable. It's not just pressure, it's spiritual pregnancy. The ache you feel, that tension deep within your heart, is not evidence that you're failing. It's proof that you're carrying something that simply refuses to stay hidden any longer. What's happening to you isn't a breakdown. It's a breaking open. There comes a time when the walls that once held you can no longer contain what God has placed within you. The discomfort you've been feeling isn't random, it's spiritual dilation. Heaven has been preparing you to birth something far bigger than yourself. The delay wasn't denial, it was divine timing perfectly set by the one who holds all seasons in his hands. Micah 2 verse 13 reveals the nature of this moment. The one who breaks open the way will go up before them. They will break through the gate and go out. Friend, you're not standing at a closed door waiting for permission. You are the one heaven has anointed to break through. The shift you carry will not merely affect you, it will send waves through everything connected to you. You are not walking into breakthrough, you are bringing it with you. This is the hour when you must stop underestimating the significance of what you're carrying. The waiting wasn't just a delay, it was a divine stretching, a holy preparation. Romans 8 verse 19 declares, "For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed." The earth itself is groaning, waiting for what you've been designed to release. Every step you've taken, even those that seemed small, has been positioning you for this. The spiritual pressure that has weighed heavily on you is not a sign that you're about to collapse. It's confirmation that the time for release is near. Isaiah 66 verse 9 asks, "Do I bring to the moment of birth and not give delivery?" No. God finishes what he starts. This is why everything around you feels like it's shifting. Relationships are changing. Opportunities are shifting. Some doors are closing without explanation. Some people are walking away without warning. It's not rejection, it's realignment. When you shift, everything connected to you must adjust as well. I want you to hear this clearly. You are not simply stepping into breakthrough. You are the door others have been waiting for. You are the opening into a new season, the one whose obedience unlocks the pathway for others. Your transition may feel like tension, but it is laced with glory. God is not just sending you into a new space. He's birthing something through you that cannot be contained. The resistance you've faced, it was a contraction, not a conflict. The spiritual warfare, it was a push, not a punishment. There is a holy shift happening inside of you right now. It's the kind of shift that will shake everything around you. The kind that causes what once seemed impossible to suddenly feel inevitable. What's coming is bigger than what you've ever seen, and it's closer than you think. This is not the season to shrink back. It's not the season to question your worth or to analyze every detail of what you feel. No, this is the moment to stand firm, to lean into the discomfort, and to trust that the same God who has carried you this far will not leave you in transition. The shift you carry cannot be contained, not by fear, not by doubt, not by the opinions of others, not even by your past limitations. Heaven has scheduled your release, and nothing can stop what God has already set in motion. It's time to embrace the tension, because it's not the end, it's the beginning of something glorious. And just like that, the tides begin to turn. All the pressing, all the waiting, all the carrying in silence, none of it was wasted. The very space you fought to hold open for others is now about to be filled by heaven itself. You may have thought your assignment was simply to support, to intercede, to stand in the background unseen. But God is about to walk you into the very harvest that your hidden sacrifices prepared. There is a holy shift when heaven decides it's time to honor the ones who have labored in secret. You've sown with tears in private. You've stood in quiet obedience when others moved on without acknowledging the price you paid. You watered barren ground with your prayers, and now, without striving, without begging, you're about to see the fruit of what you planted. Psalm 126 verse 5-6 declares, Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. This isn't just a harvest, it's a holy vindication. I can feel it deep in my spirit. This is not merely a reward for good behavior. This is heaven's covenant response. You didn't just offer charity. You offered obedience. You didn't just lend your strength. You gave your surrender. And heaven always keeps covenant with those who surrender everything. There is something deeply personal about this moment. It's not only about receiving blessings, it's about stepping fully into the space you once made for others. Deuteronomy 28 verse 2 reminds us, "All these blessings will come on you and accompany you if you obey the Lord your God." It's not arrogance to expect the blessing, it's agreement with God's promise. This is your season to receive what your prayers built. For too long you've watched others celebrate their victories while you were still contending behind closed doors. You carried burdens no one saw, interceded when others were sleeping, and stood firm when everything in you wanted to give up. But hear me clearly, this is your turn to walk in favor. The same doors you held open for others, God is now swinging wide for you. The beauty of this moment is not just that you are receiving something good, it's that you're walking into the fulfillment of what you once carried in deep, aching pain. What felt like delay was always development. What felt like silence was always preparation. Isaiah 61 verse 7 declares, "Instead of your shame you will receive a double portion, and instead of disgrace you will rejoice in your inheritance." You are stepping into double, not because you demanded it, but because you endured for it. I need you to see this clearly. This is not the season where you sit on the sidelines watching others anymore. The hidden places you were once assigned to are now becoming visible platforms, not for your glory, but for God's. Your faithfulness in obscurity has qualified you for divine visibility. And I know you may feel tired. You may have even forgotten some of the things you were once contending for because the waiting was so long. But heaven has not forgotten. Heaven has remembered every whispered prayer, every sleepless night, every tear sown into the soil of obedience. God has not overlooked you. This moment is about to overwhelm you, not because you strive to make it happen, but because God delights in surprising His faithful ones. Psalm 126 is not a distant promise. It is your present reality. You are walking into joy that overtakes sorrow, peace that overtakes struggle, and favor that overtakes every season of obscurity. What you made sacred in private is about to be filled with glory in public. So lift your head. This is not just another season. This is the manifestation of heaven's memory. The spaces you once stood in for others, those spaces are now being filled with divine abundance, and the shout of joy that rises from your lips will echo for generations to come. You didn't just hold space for others. You made room for the miraculous. And now heaven is about to fill every inch of that room with more than you ever imagined. There are seasons when it feels like you're standing at the river's edge, heart pounding, watching the waters rise.